Welcome to the Press Box. I'm Ryan Thorburn, joined by Steve Mims. Steve, 1 year ago we were welcoming Willie Taggart to Oregon, and a year later Florida State is welcoming Willie to Tallahassee. Obviously Willie has taken the Florida State job. Oregon has a vacancy once again. Just kind of your thoughts of this crazy week in Eugene.
Yeah, I think it's never going to surprise anybody that Willie was going to head back to Florida. I do think that Rob Mullins put it best yesterday when he said the exit was clumsy. You know, I think if you're Willie, looking back, you probably would have wished that you'd have talked to Florida State on Friday, do the interview, and get it over then, rather than coming back to practice and doing the bowl announcement and having to deflect everything. But I think everybody thought eventually Florida that he might head home to Florida. I don't think anybody thought Jimbo Fisher was going to be leaving this quickly. So, yeah, Oregon's left with an opening after 363 days.
The scab is not healed yet, obviously. There's a lot of emotions inside the locker room. Brady Breeze was kind of the spokesman for the players yesterday. He was the only guy that really stopped and talked about this. And, you know, he said there was a lot of unhappy players in the locker room, especially the Florida guys that came out here to play for Willie. Now he's back in Florida. Now on Twitter you're seeing a lot of players that are angry and feel like Willie lied to them. He certainly misled the media when he said that there was nothing to this story and that he had not been contacted when he had been contacted. Just kind of, like you said, a messy exit, but how do you think this affects the players in terms of getting ready for Boise State?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's too worried about Boise State at this point. You're right. It could be one of those letdown bowl games where suddenly you go there and get the doors blown off, especially if Boise State's Brian Harson's still their coach. But, you know, this happens everywhere, and we hear about it. The players are saying now that, hey, the coach lied to us, this and that. I mean, that's just college football. When one guy leaves a job for another, it's very rarely Scott Frost-esque, where you go and kind of finish the season and everybody says, hey, you're definitely going to a better place. We wish you well and appreciate all you've done here, especially Oregon. I mean, Oregon feels like this program should be as considered the elite in the program and that nobody should want to leave here to go anywhere else. You know, Willie talked all the time about he could win a national title at Oregon. I think Oregon fans looked at that and said, hey, if you can do that, why'd you go somewhere else? So what Oregon's going through right now, I can tell you pretty much every fan base has gone through at some point over the last decade or so.
You mentioned Frost. He's likely the National Coach of the Year for what he did at Central Florida. He's at Nebraska now. Chip Kelly has recently been hired by UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, timing is everything. What is Rob Mullins going to do with this awful timing? He's already made Mario Cristobal the interim coach for the bowl game, but, you know, he's got to hurry with recruiting. I know you don't really worry about that. It's a long-term hire, but the timing really worse than ever with the early signing date.
Well, the fact that he said he's hired a search firm leads me to believe he's at least going to go. I think he's looking out there to see if there's a sitting head coach at a big school that he can pry away. You know, I don't think this is, you know, he's going to go back to the guys he had on the list last year. He's going to obviously promote Cristobal. I think he's going to try to take a couple big shots. Go see if maybe there's somebody sitting somewhere who'd be interested in the Oregon job that you wouldn't expect. So I think he's going to aim for something like that first. Get an experienced guy, a name to come in here that's won elsewhere. And then if that doesn't happen, then you double back. I know they'll be talking Justin Wilcox. That's possible. I'm not sure that right now, after 1 year there, is the time that Oregon would jump at him. Kevin Sumlin, again, looks like a guy almost like Taggart. He's got all his ties in the South. If he comes here, you know, the next coach who comes here might go 10-2 next year and be pretty attractive automatically. He could leave. I do think Cristobal is a candidate, but I think he's down on the list at this point.
I talked to one AD that I used to cover, and I said, what would you do in this situation? Because it's pretty tough. If you were Rob Mullins, and he said, I'm not sure, but just remember, fit is everything. And, you know, Oregon needs to have the right fit. And I think Willie Taggart was the right fit.
Yeah.
Offensive-minded, you know, he was into their branding, he was into the swag, all that stuff, the uniforms. And their offense was electrifying with Justin Herbert. So I tend to think they need someone kind of young and offensive-minded, which, you know, would go against Wilcox. But, you know, can they get one of those home run guys, and is someone, you know, another Taggart, or is he someone who would lay down roots here?
I think that Rob's going to ask that question this time around. I do, and maybe give somebody about a $14 million buyout to get out of here after he kind of got stung by Willie. So I think whoever he talks to next time, he tells them, hey, look, if you're interested in this, we got to have some sort of loyalty here. Now, look, there's no guarantees in college football. Like I say, whoever takes this job has got a pretty good chance to be 10-2, maybe 11-1 next year. And all of a sudden, any big opening may come look at the Oregon guys. So I think Rob's going to make sure he feels like whoever he gets would withstand any offers that come in the next couple of years, and he's not going to. The guy he hires, he's going to feel like is going to be committed to Oregon.
Steve, is there any chance that Mario Cristobal or Jim Leavitt are elevated to head coach and stay at Oregon?
I think there's a possibility. The fact that Mario Cristobal was named the interim coach leads me to believe that he'd be the front runner of those two. I think there's a possibility. I just don't think he's at the top of Rob Mullen's list. I think Rob, like I say, is going to aim high, going to look nationally and see if he can get somebody that maybe people don't expect. But if that doesn't happen and you're in a situation where the time you got to get a hire done, and you feel like it's late in the process, you want to promote somebody, I think Cristobal would be the choice. And again, great recruiter heading into signing day.
In my opinion, if you're Rob Mullins, you have to look at two guys, Chris Peterson, Chip Kelly, and ask yourself, who can I get that can match X's and O's with those guys? Because they're the standard bearers right now in the Pac-12, with all due respect to Herm Edwards and that strange hire down in Arizona State. Is Mike Leach a guy that you think can do that?
Possibly. I never got the idea that Mike Leach is really popular in Eugene. I'm not sure that that's the name that comes in that Rob's going to win the fan base with. Certainly be somewhat entertaining for us, but I'm not sure that Rob's going to look across the conference and bring in a Mike Leach and kind of all that comes with that. I would be surprised if that was at the top of the list.
Another name that everyone's thrown out there is Kevin Sumlin, formerly of Texas A&M. As luck would have it for Oregon, his getting fired at A&M led to Florida State losing Jimbo Fisher and ultimately the dominoes coming here. But is Sumlin a guy in that mold, an SEC guy recently, that can he kind of elevate Oregon in the Pac-12?
Possibly, like I say, but also a guy who might be on the Willie path, trying to get back to a school down in the South that's more of a dream school for him. But that would be fascinating if we just had a little circle of Willie, Jimbo, and Kevin Sumlin and could kind of follow and see who gets the best of that deal.
Well, it'll be an interesting search, and we'll try and keep you updated as best we can. It's certainly been a wild week on Twitter. Do you want to give a shout out to Furball or any of your other fans on the way out?
To El Furdaball and the rest of them who think that we need to be asking some better questions, we'll hopefully find you in the next press conference.
All right, stay tuned, and thanks for tuning in.